Good evening, and peace and blessings to all of you. I cannot believe that an entire year has passed since I assumed the office of president of the New York City Bar Association. And oh my, what indeed a year it has been. It has been challenging, and we've been through so much. Seriously, the COVID-19 pandemic, the deaths of family members, friends, and coworkers, the murder of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests, an acrimonious national election, a scientific race to develop vaccines, a rising tide of hatred and violence against Asian Americans, the January 6th insurrection on the US Capitol, the trial of Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin, the showdown about whether to mask or unmask, whether to send children to school or not, and even challenges about the legitimacy of the president of Joseph R. Biden. I don't know about you, but I never in a million years could have imagined what the past year would have been like. In my opinion, it's been crazy and often a dark period, quite frankly, in American history, full of uncertainties, pain, agony, hatred, division, ignorance, and even confusion. And it's because of everything that has happened, I felt that I was in a very important and quite frankly, spiritual and existential moment, if you will, as I served on this platform known as the president of this prestigious and august body, known as the New York City Bar Association. I thus tried to summon everything within me, and I tried to summon everything within all of you to help us survive, not just survive, actually, to thrive. That's a better word, to thrive. And not to succumb to the madness, but instead to propel ourselves above and beyond it. Not to try to do things with a phony business as usual attitude, but instead try to be innovative and think outside of the box. And to not suffer in silence, but instead to speak truth to power. To not give in to despair, but instead deign to what, everybody? Deign to hope. And that is why, for my time as your 69th president, I have declared that the New York City Bar Association is the bar of hope. And I just want to thank each and every one of you, not just for embracing a slogan, but for actually embodying a principle and working with me and City Bar Executive Director Brett Parker and all of our staff and affiliates to press on and do good work. Good work. Writing excellent educational reports and white papers, good work. Authoring letters to legislative bodies and representatives with policy recommendations, good work. Developing and producing programming, whether CLEs, webinars, or podcasts that help to educate and inspire our members and community, good work. Having virtual networking events just to connect us socially and lift our spirits, good work. Through our City Bar Fund, serving as good stewards to raise money, mobilizing New York City lawyers to do work for those in need and for the law profession at large, good work. Providing legal services for New Yorkers in need throughout with the City Bar Justice Fund, the City Bar Justice Center, good work. Through the Vance Center for International Justice, recognizing and acting upon Martin Luther King Jr.'s admonition that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, good work. Through our Diversity and Inclusion Office, engaging in activities and programming, assisting law firms and corporations in adopting best practices to move the needle in our profession so that historically underrepresented groups can meaningfully and equitably join and participate in our profession. Good work. Through the Lawyers Assistance Program, helping our community to confront and deal with substance abuse and addictive behavior. Good work. Through Mindfulness and our Well-Being Committee, working to eradicate this idea that mental illness is a stigma and developing wellness activities and skill sets to battle depression, anxiety, and burnout in our profession. Good work. Taking very public and perhaps controversial stands in a principled way to speak truth to power and deliver a clarion call for adherence to and protection of the rule of law. Good work, y'all. The New York City Bar Association, you are hashtag New York Strong, hashtag Legal Eagle Excellence, hashtag Bar of Hope. And may I just say that I am just so humbled and yet also extremely proud and honored to be serving as your president. I'm in awe of you. And I thank God for each and every one of you who have worked so very hard and served in one capacity or another, whether it's chair of a committee, secretary for a committee, an active member, attending to the needs of small law firms, or providing legal service referrals, or serving as pro bono counsel to a New Yorker in need, or working in person at the historic City Bar building located at 42 West 44th Street. By the way, while observing all of the CDC and New York safety requirements and guidelines, of course. Good work. Assisting us this evening is Kevin. I thank him and others on the City Bar's IT team for working hard to keep us connected virtually. And then there's just so much more everyone has been doing. It's been a team effort. Good work. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for persevering through this difficult year and rising to the occasion. I'd give you a standing ovation right now if I could, all by my lonesome. And I guess given the circumstances, all I can do is just clap, applaud you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I salute you. And I say bravo for a job well done, New York City Bar Association. And to that end, let me hasten to share with you just a few highlights of things we've accomplished together over the past year. As many of you know by now, I have 6 pillars for my presidency, 6 topics or areas of concentration on which I have asked all of our hardworking committees and City Bar leaders to effectuate or carry out as priority projects and programming. I'm referring, of course, to COVID-19 recovery projects, mental health and wellness, access to justice, criminal justice reform, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and protection of the rule of law. Let's start with number 1, COVID-19 recovery projects. When I became president of the New York City Bar Association on May 19th, 2020, something which I never could have imagined, but which was thrust upon me, became a priority, trying to meaningfully participate in the public discussions and debates about how to function in and recover from this pandemic. We explored questions such as how can justice continue to be accessed and provided? Which courts should open and when? What can be virtual? What can't be virtual? How can we lawyers best adapt in our practices? And whether it was related to the bar exam, how and when it should be administered in New York State, or whether it was about law schools and sharing best practices about hybrid classes and otherwise for the continued education of our law school students, whether it was opining on vaccine prioritization and advocating for communities most negatively impacted by COVID-19, meaning the elderly, the poor, communities of color, and the incarcerated, the Bar of Hope played an integral role in all such discussions, decisions, and policy making. Moreover, we have had some top-notch programming. Just recently, the Sex and Law Committee had a CLE program. It's under the leadership of Ileana I can't say your name correctly, please forgive me, Ileana Konadaris, there it is. She had a program, her committee, entitled How COVID-19 Struck a Blow to Women and Their Careers, and they recommended strategies to recover. Awesome program. Another COVID-19 initiative currently underway is that regarding the imminent threat of an eviction crisis as a result of the pandemic right here in our city. To that end, our Right to Counsel Task Force under the leadership of Allison King and Andrew Schurer has been working really hard to have meaningful impact, highlighting the issue, educating the community, helping people fill out and submit their hardship declarations to get eviction proceedings delayed, and making recommendations to the housing court. We've had a serious brain trust on that project, including past presidents, John Kieran and Roger Maldonado. Thank you. Good work. And those are just a few examples of our countless COVID-19 recovery projects. Moving on to mental health and wellness. The Lawyers Assistance Project and our Wellness and Mindfulness Committee are still very much engaged in the awesome and important work that they do. Thank you, Eileen Travis. Thank you, Cecilia Loving. As president of this great association, I've actually had the pleasure and opportunity to engage in discussions and educate Bar Association leaders from across the globe about the importance of mental health and wellness and ways that bar associations can serve as leaders in promoting good mental health in the law profession, which is one of the most stressful industries worldwide. Moreover, every time I speak, every time I have a public platform to address others, I've been trying to advocate for greater awareness of this important topic. I try to advocate for therapy and the eradication of the stigma of mental illness. I urge everyone to take wellness seriously and to get the help they need. And frankly, as my pastor would say, we need to take care of our precious minds. And just like we do, like we go to the doctor for physicals, we need to actually get a checkup from the neck up. And I mean that seriously. We've been on a mission to get the New York courts to add a mental health wellness CLE requirement for the legal community. Not to add on more CLE hours, don't worry, but to designate some of the hours we already have to this important issue. Every single one of us, hear me, every single one of us has experienced trauma over the past year. We've been dealing with a deadly virus and social isolation. And whether we're willing to admit it or not, it has taken an emotional toll on all of us. And we need to acknowledge that and take it seriously. We need to give ourselves a break, exhibit some grace towards ourselves as well as others, as we all have just been trying to do the best that we can under extraordinarily stressful and challenging circumstances. As a woman of faith, I've always prayed to help settle my spirit. But I have to tell you, since the pandemic and this work, I've also learned to meditate seriously, how to breathe deeply and correctly, and how to take the time to be mindful of how I'm doing emotionally as well as physically. And also, quite frankly, to just forgive myself for my shortcomings and not always accomplishing everything that I've set out to do or in the manner that I set out to do it, but still to be inspired to work very hard, give tasks my best effort, and to have an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude actually has a biological effect, y'all. Gratitude enhances our immune system, for it releases endorphins and other chemicals that are good for us. So let's all continue to be mindful of our well-being and to strive for healthier lives in this pressure cooker of a profession. Mental health and wellness. Number 3, access to justice. Access to justice has been and continues to be a majority priority of this Bar Association. It is a part of our core mission. We do so much when it comes to access to justice, particularly on the policy front. However, the only thing I'm going to highlight for this topic right now, quite frankly, is the work of the City Bar Justice Center. We've had the stellar leadership, talent, and compassion of former Executive Director Lynn Kelly, shout out to her, at the Justice Center. And I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to work with her. And now we have a new leader, as Brett shared with all of you, Kurt Dink, who has taken the baton from Lynn and is doing a wonderful job. Now, early in the days of the pandemic, the Justice Center quickly created the COVID-19 Small Business Remote Legal Clinic, a marvelous idea when things went virtually suddenly. The Justice Center provides pro bono legal services to help over 25,000 individuals each year, including immigrants fleeing violence and oppression, families residing in homeless shelters, the elderly, veterans with disability claims, pro se litigants, micro entrepreneurs, and many others who are indigent, vulnerable, and in need of assistance with life and death matters. I want to encourage all of you, like Brett, to attend the virtual annual gala 1 week from tonight, 6 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll be nice, short, and sweet. The theme is Make Justice a Movement. Good work, y'all. Please support the Justice Center and attend the virtual gala next week. Number 4, the pillar of criminal justice reform. I believe that justice was served, quite frankly, in the guilty verdict rendered against police officer Chauvin for George Floyd's death. But please hear me and understand, that verdict was in no fashion or form a panacea for all of our problems. We still have issues in our criminal justice system. And we, as the Bar of Hope, are still vigilantly fighting for criminal justice reforms. Last year, we had 2 panels on police reform. The first one was from a national perspective with luminaries like Loretta Lynch and Paul Fishman. And the second one focused more narrowly on our own beloved New York City. We discussed difficult issues such as chokeholds, no-knock warrants, qualified immunity, the funding of police forces, and other needed social and medical services, as well as new police training programs. On the policy front, we have been advocating for vacating human trafficking convictions, advocating for incarcerated persons to be placed in facilities closer to their children's residences, to facilitate visits and support and nourish the children and the families of New York City. We have authored a comprehensive piece explaining and decrying the use of DNA information gathering and indexing by the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and how it digresses from the manner in which the state has been handling DNA information. In addition, the Criminal Courts Committee wrote a thoughtful piece about how to safely operate the criminal courts while still being mindful of due process. That's just some of the work we are doing in that arena, criminal justice reform. Now, with the Chauvin conviction for George Floyd and the rise of hatred and violence against our Asian American sisters and brothers, we are still in a time of racial reckoning. So that fifth pillar, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have remained passionate and vigilant about diversity, equity, and inclusion over the past year. The City Bar co-sponsored the program, Countering Hate and Violence Against Asian Americans. We've been convening leaders of the meetings of the leaders of local area affinity bar associations, coming together and joining forces with respect to that initiative and others. I've had the honor of speaking to and with our new Associate Leadership Institute fellows. The Institute is a diversity, equity, and inclusion program whereby we are trying to develop diverse leaders and help the associates advance in their respective law firms and careers generally. The panels for that program have been educational and very much on point. Through our Vance Center for International Justice, led by Alex Papakristou, we sponsored 4 fellows, junior Black attorneys from Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria, and they worked at law firms in New York City to help them further develop their skill sets as attorneys and to help us enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion of our profession on an international as well as domestic level. Now, I should also report that I recently had the privilege of participating on an all-female panel of International Bar Association leaders from Germany, France, Hong Kong, and Spain. It was a 2-hour panel entitled Gender Equality and the Rule of Law, 2 sides of the same coin. It was educational and quite spirited, I might add. I was so proud to share all of the wonderful work we've been doing at the Bar of Hope, whether it was successfully advocating for the mayor to provide Wi-Fi in homeless shelters so women could apply for jobs and housing, or work in representing women who are victims of domestic violence, or advocating for the application of human rights law to pregnancy, childbirth, and related medical conditions, or reporting on the Vance Center, which has created the first ever global network of advocates for women in prison, with participants in 21 countries representing every continent. All of it, just remarkable good work. And I'm pleased that my vision of having a presidential series focusing on Black women and girls, it's entitled Raising the Bar of Hope. It was launched back in early March, and we had the first CLE program on the over-policing of Black girls in schools. And it's my hope to have the second program this summer. I just want to say for the record that I am so proud and indebted to David Levine, chair of the fund board, as well as Christina Overton and Devanshi Shaw, who've been doing a wonderful job at running the Diversity and Inclusion Office, working with me and Brett over the past 6 to 7 months. The City Bar has continued with a robust agenda and programming. So please let me be clear. When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have not skipped a beat over the past bar year, despite the pandemic and other challenges. And then there's my last pillar, that of the protection of the rule of law. I would submit that an inordinate amount of my time was surprisingly spent during my first year as president on this initiative. With a very skilled and talented team of attorneys working with me, we developed position statements and educational pieces on various issues, including we decried the policy of separating immigrant children from their parents at our nation's borders. We submitted an amicus brief in the Michael Lynn matter, which was before the DC Circuit Court, advocating for Judge Emmett Sullivan's discretion to appoint amicus counsel to take the side opposite of the DOJ in a hearing to determine whether the case should be dismissed. We submitted a position statement on the Supreme Court nomination process in the context of Justice Coney Barrett's nomination. We openly condemned the Capitol Hill insurrection and offered a critique of the former president's involvement with the events leading up to that day. We affirmed our support for the work of the International Criminal Court, a treaty-based permanent court that plays a key role in the fight against impunity for atrocity crimes. We offered a detailed analysis of the allegations that Rudy Giuliani has been facing before disciplinary committees and the process that would be followed. And we issued a clarion call for our attorneys and the entire legal community to become more civic-minded and engage in educating the public about our justice system and the rule of law. Irrespective of on what side of the political spectrum you're on, I sincerely hope that you were able to respect, if not fully agree with the stances we took over the past year. those concerning the rule of law. Those stances were in no way whimsical or haphazard. They were not taken lightly, without serious forethought. The board and relevant committees had long, hard discussions and debates. We believe that we took scholarly, principled, nonpartisan, well thought out, and good intentioned stands in support of our nation's core democratic principles. And I am just really proud of that body of work, the rule of law. And now I want to end my remarks by doing something a little different than what usually happens at our annual meetings. And please forgive me, because we're going to go a few minutes over. My heart is full, and I'm so very much filled with an attitude of gratitude for this august body that I wish to give personal and special recognition to a few specific committees. Now, don't get me wrong, we have over 150 committees, and all of you have done wonderful work. But there have been a few in particular that have worked very closely with me, and I just want to honor them in a very personal and special way. I'm calling these the Bar of Hope Presidential Award and Honorable Mention Certificates. Here we go. First, the honorable mentions. There are a total of 5. I'm going to announce them in alphabetical order and not in any way an order of substantive significance. Those committees, my shout out goes to the Animal Law Committee. Shocked, huh? The Compliance Committee, the Council on the Profession, the Criminal Courts Committee, and the Education and the Law Committee. Those are my 5, y'all. I want to publicly commend the Animal Law Committee, chaired by Christopher Walt. The Animal Law Committee is a super active and dedicated committee that is always coming up with something creative. They recently were widely quoted in articles about the state Senate's passage of a bill to curtail puppy mills and encourage pet shops to partner with shelters and rescue organizations instead. They are prolific report writers, keeping me very busy, but I'm so thankful for their vigilance in the protection of animals, and I have learned so much from them. Compliance Committee, it's chaired by Patrick D. Campbell. I and our policy gurus have just been very impressed with the Compliance Committee. They've been so proactive and engaged over the past bar year. Notably, their report on Chief Compliance Officer liability received a lot of attention in the media and among government officials. Moreover, they are in the process of launching a blog on compliance issues. They do wonderful work in the area of compliance, which right now encompasses a lot of cutting-edge legal issues, so I sincerely thank them. Shout out to Council on the Profession, co-chaired by Matthew Diller and Melissa Colon-Bosselet. The Council on the Profession was the first committee with which I personally worked closely. Coming out of the proverbial gate as president of this organization, we were confronted head on with the pandemic issues concerning the safety and education of law school students in academic settings, how the bar exam should be administered in New York State, and other issues. And that wonderful group assisted me in putting together a panel of our law school deans, which I moderated, to discuss such issues. Whenever I asked Melissa and Dean Diller for assistance as a newbie president, they delivered. So thank you. Another shout out. Criminal Courts Committee, chaired by Terry Rosenblatt. Terry and her committee were available on a near daily basis as we were first beginning to understand and respond to the enormity of the COVID crisis and its implications for vulnerable populations. Along with other committees in the Criminal and Corrections cluster, they wrote multiple letters urging that people in prison be given consideration for release and that vaccinations be prioritized for the safety of everyone in the prisons, including those working there. They later urged vaccine priority for lawyers and support staff who must meet with clients in jails, prisons, and other detention facilities. Moreover, last summer, Terry and her committee heard and responded to my cry to convene a second panel on police reform, focusing in on our beloved state and city. And they served as lead author of the accompanying report and recommendations. Criminal Courts Committee, thank you. And finally, that 5th honorable mention, Education and the Law, co-chaired by Jerian James and Evan Rosenberg. As the first woman of color president of the New York City Bar Association in its 150-year existence, I felt compelled to do something special and significant to pay homage to a demographic to which I belong and which I believe has too often been marginalized. And so I embarked on a mission to have a presidential series called Raising the Bar of Hope, a focus on Black women and girls. I decided to first focus on the over-policing of Black girls in the public school system. I shared the idea with Jerian and Evan, and they graciously and successfully brought it to tuition. And for that, I will forever be grateful. So those are the 5 honorable mentions. And now, I wish to announce the City Bar Committee, which has received the Bar of Hope Presidential Award. Can we have a drum roll, please? Tried to do it. Congratulations to the Rule of Law Task Force, chaired by Stephen L. Cass from Carter Ledyard. Thank you, Steve. A beautiful award was mailed to Steve. He said that he received it, and it reads, Award of Excellence to the Rule of Law Task Force. This 2021 New York City Bar Association Presidential Award is presented in recognition of outstanding service on behalf of the Bar of Hope, presented by Sheila as Boston President. Chair Stephen Cass, Committee Secretary Nalima Singh, and all members of the Rule of Law Task Force, in collaboration with other groups like the Task Force for the Independence of Lawyers and Judges and the Immigration and Nationality Law Committee, I could not have done all of the tremendous rule of law work product without you. You presented an excellent 5-part forum on the rule of law, featuring some of today's best known legal analysts and commentators. So, Rule of Law Task Force, thank you. And my 5 honorable mentions, thank you. Thank you to all. I want to thank my City Bar posse. You know who you are. I'm not going to call your names out right now. You know who you are. I want to thank my law firm, Arnold and Porter K. Scholler, for its tremendous support. I love them. I want to thank this year's powerhouse and think tank, our incomparably talented board of directors, for an excellent year. And again, I thank each and every one of you, the members, for the precious opportunity to serve. We still have a lot of work to do, though. I have 1 more year. But if the past year is any indication of what we can all do together, then we are full of what? I can't hear you. I know the answer. We all are full of hope. Thank you, Brett. Hope. We are the Bar of Hope. And now, Brett, I guess I have the honor of announcing election results.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure, please.
I neglected to thank somebody, and I'm glad we were still on screen so I can do that. Our head of IT, Cameron Qureshi, who, by the way, talk about doing amazing things. He took our entire organization and made it virtual. And him and Kevin and the whole team have done an amazing job. And frankly, he does it without, it's invisible. Like you say you need something and it happens. So anyway, I want to make sure I thank him before we get to the work of the election.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you all. Okay, Martha, I've got the official word, right? All right. Please be advised that voting for officers and members of the board is now closed. The City Bar has counted all of the votes cast in person or by proxy, and I am pleased to announce the election of the following officers and directors. President, Sheila S. Boston. Thank you for agreeing to allow me to lead for 1 more year. Vice Presidents, Kathy Harada Chin, Lorraine S. McGowan, Marjorie J. Pierce. Office of Secretary, Drexel B. Harris. Office of Treasurer, Thomas R. Sloan. Board of Directors, Class of 2025, David G. Keiko, David F. Levine, Paula T. Edgar, and Kevin S. Schwartz. Board of Directors, Class of 2024, Leslie Horton Campbell. Board of Directors, Class of 2023, Brian D. Farkas. And the following individuals have been elected as members of the Nominating Committee for the New York City Bar Association. They include the Honorable Andrea Maisley, S. Janine Conley, Carmelyn P. Malalis, Cecilia B. Loving, and the Honorable Rosalind H. Richter. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much. And now that ends my report, my remarks, my recognitions of wonderful committees. I thank you all. And Brett, the floor is now all yours.